4 years ago, a new virus broke out in China that changed the lives of everyone on this planet.
Biggest quarantine in history right now taking place in China.
Hundreds dead, thousands infected across multiple continents.
It spread so quickly and so far that in a matter of months, the whole world was shut down. CCP, being the CCP, did everything in its power to hide the news coming out of Wuhan for as long as they could. Then suddenly, COVID was everywhere and other countries were not prepared. Millions died and billions suffered through this pandemic, all caused by a virus.
More than 1,000 deaths have been reported for the latest 24-hour period.
The sheer numbers of people succumbing to the coronavirus is overwhelming every hospital. An absolute constant. This killer pandemic is virtually out of control.
Now, something similar is happening in China again. A new virus is spreading quickly, and this time mostly infecting children. Chinese hospitals are filled, ICU beds are running out, and neighborhoods are close to shutting down again. Tens of thousands of cases are being reported every day, and the situation is getting worse by the minute. All the while, CCP is again focused on limiting the bad press instead of helping its citizens. WHO has publicly asked China to share more data, including test results of patients infected by this virus. But if COVID was any indication, I doubt China is going to be transparent this time around. So in today's video, let's go over what this new virus is, what CCP is doing, and is this all linked to COVID? First and foremost, please hit the like button below. Just mentioning COVID in my videos seems to get them restricted on YouTube. On this channel, we have made just 3 COVID related videos, and all of them have been restricted by YouTube. So your like definitely is going to help us a lot. This is all happening because of COVID, because of course it is. Do you remember that almost a year ago, protests happened in China because people were sick of CCP's brutal lockdowns? These lockdowns were absolutely insane. Neighborhoods were caged in. People couldn't get out of their building even during a fire. And if CCP found out that you tested positive, you were forcefully removed from your house and put in a quarantine cell against your will. It was just crazy. So it makes sense that people got sick of this and rose up against the CCP and Xi Jinping. People were out in the streets, chanting for Xi to step down. Of course, this was really scary for the CCP and Xi. Before this, 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre was probably the worst opposition communist government ever faced. So they folded very quickly and lifted all the lockdown restrictions. That was over a year ago, and now the spike in cases is because of that decision. Let me explain. This all started when a report was published on a medical website called ProMed. This is a website doctors and medical professionals use to track infectious diseases around the world. Back in 2019, doctors first found out about COVID through this website. So this new report asks for more information about new cases that are popping up in northern China from something called undiagnosed pneumonia, China. Beijing, Liaoning. This language was surprisingly similar to the report that was published back in 2019 about what turned out to be COVID. In that report, they asked for more information about undiagnosed pneumonia, China, Hubei. Considering how COVID affected the world, doctors and scientists got really worried about this new report. So let's quickly go over this report. This report basically lays out the situation in northern China. If you want to read the whole thing, you can pause the video and read. But here's the TLDR. Report says that there's a pneumonia outbreak in Beijing and Liaoning. Most of the patients seem to be kids. Hospitals are overwhelmed and schools are about to be closed down because of how fast it's spreading. There is an important thing to point out about the 2 locations mentioned in the report, Beijing and Liaoning. They're almost 400 miles apart. So that means this isn't some concentrated outbreak in one area. This has already spread pretty wide. This report spread like wildfire in the medical community, and it forced the WHO to request more information from China about details on these new cases. China did share some information, but as you will soon find out, it wasn't much of useful information. But before that, let's first talk about the outbreak and the local media. Even Chinese local media started reporting how hospitals are getting overwhelmed. According to the local reports, a lot of new patients had a mysterious disease where they don't cough or have any symptoms. They just have high fever, and many develop lung nodules. On top of this, huge majority of these patients are kids, which just adds to the stress and panic in the public. Videos from Chinese social media show that the hospital lobbies are jammed packed. At some hospitals, the wait is 2 hours, while at others, it's almost 2 days. This is all for emergency cases, so it doesn't include the normal patients that hospital gets on regular basis. Another post from Chinese social media platform Weibo showed a hospital screen notifying patients that the queue had more than 700 people with an estimated wait time of 13 hours. In a different post, a video claimed Tianjin Children's Hospital was being overwhelmed with an average of 13,000 patients per day, while Beijing's Children's Hospital reported 7,000 cases per day. If COVID was any indication, it's very likely that these numbers are underreported, and the true extent of the situation is much larger. Worst part of all this is there's a good chance some of these kids were not infected with this undiagnosed pneumonia, but after spending hours waiting in the hospital rooms with other kids who were infected, they most likely had cross-infection. Just to make sure the situation on Chinese social media wasn't overblown, CNN actually called a local hospital in China to ask for an appointment. They were told that there are patients waiting in the hospital with an appointment to see a doctor a day ago, but still haven't seen the doctor. Lastly, one of the most bizarre piece of clips I saw during my research was a clip of hospital lobby full of young kids receiving IV drips while attending school online. I'm still confused on what this clip actually signifies. Does this mean that kids are healthy enough that they're attending school online while receiving some treatment? Or does it mean that this is expected to last a long time, much like COVID? So parents decided that their kid might as well start attending school online already. I haven't found a concrete explanation to that clip, but if I do, I'll put it in the video somewhere. But if it's not there, then that means I'm still searching for it. So if you know anything, please comment down below. Coming back to the topic, these kind of videos started spreading all over social media. It got so bad that CCP couldn't hide anymore. There was one viral clip that has parents asking the government, and I quote, "Are you covering up an epidemic again?" Clearly, even Chinese citizens had learned from everything CCP did during COVID times. So at last, the government was forced to hold a public briefing about the situation. But it went exactly how you would expect it to go if you know anything about the CCP. The goal of the briefing was to instill confidence in the public, but these officials just sounded clueless during the whole thing. They said this was not unusual. They blamed the surge in cases on lockdown that China ended nearly a year ago. In all honesty, after researching this single point for hours, it's most likely the case, but it's just wild to think that tens of thousands of cases per day is not unusual according to the CCP. I get that the officials don't want to cause a panic in the public, but it's also pretty stupid to downplay the situation this badly. Also, it's just so hard to believe whatever the Chinese officials say because they are still refusing to release the actual data and numbers even after WHO's request. Even if what they're saying is true, it doesn't look good that they're withholding data from the public. We still don't know how many cases there are, how big of a spike this is compared to normal times, and what exactly is this. WHO also asked them to make the lab results of patients public, but that still hasn't happened. According to WHO guidelines, the government has 24 hours to comply with the request, but it's been 2.5 days as of writing of this script, and it's probably going to be 3 to 4 days by the time I publish this video. Chinese officials have still not released the data or lab results. Last thing that's also unusual is the fact that WHO always requests information from countries when unknown diseases are reported. It's a pretty common thing. However, it's not always public, but this time they made a public request on Wednesday. So there's a good chance that WHO knew about this earlier and requested data privately, but the CCP didn't comply. So they had to put a public request to put more pressure on the CCP to comply. This theory is further supported by the fact that hospitals are reporting tens of thousands of cases per day. As mentioned earlier, Tianjin's biggest hospital is reporting 13,000 cases and Beijing's biggest hospital is reporting 7,000 cases per day. This had to be started weeks ago for numbers to be that big now. But anyways, coming back to the briefing, the lockdown point that officials made is a reasonable explanation, especially if this is just a normal respiratory infections from a bacteria or a virus. There are multiple facts that support this. First, it is normal for respiratory infections to rise during winter. What's more is this is China's first winter since its strict lockdowns. That means there will be a much larger number of children than usual who haven't been exposed to certain viruses and bacteria before and therefore have no immunity. On top of that, the immunity of people who have previously been infected by these viruses and bacteria will have faded away somewhat. So it makes sense a big wave of infections is happening in China, much like it happened in other countries after their lockdowns. So let's just hope this is the case and hope that CCP releases data and lab reports soon to put everyone's mind at ease, because after COVID, we can all use a little break from pandemics. Lastly, we'll continue following this situation and update you guys if there is any major information that comes out. We are trying our best to hit 1 million subscribers by the end of the year. So if you can please take a second and subscribe down below. It will help us out a lot, and on top of that, it will help you keep up with the stories we are covering.